guys, we're starting in 60 seconds. Share this around with your friends. $50,000 Maven account. That's the question for Izzy. Check. Okay, sweet. Okay, cool. Izzy's joining us today. Guys, we do this every single week. There's a $50,000 Maven account for the best questions. So if you got any good questions for Izzy, we're going to introduce her in a moment here, or have her introduce herself rather, just so you can start getting some ideas for some questions, get some of her experience, and then hopefully we can learn from her today. And that being said, Izzy, just give us a brief rundown. What do you trade? What do you do? How do you get into trading? What sort of style of trading you do? You know, all that jazz.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Izzy. I started trading back in, I want to say, end of 2019, maybe. So I've been trading for quite some time. I started with CFD, crypto, and then I most recently switched to futures about a couple of years ago when everybody did the switch, really. And I trade ICT. I actually tried a bunch of different strategies on my first couple of years. My first year. And then I locked in with ICT about a year and a half, like after 1 year into now.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a bit of a journey, but
yeah, cool. So I remember you messaged me this right before the podcast, and you're like, I see you make fun of ICT all the time. Are you going to grill me about ICT? And I was like, no. It's like it's partly just a bit, but you know, I'm curious because, you know, I do see there is a lot of ICT traders, and I'm curious, do you trade like any variation of ICT, or do you pick in sorry, what am I saying here? Like individual parts of ICT, or do you do all of it like in its entirety? Yeah.
So I think the reason why people get so confused, and I did at first too, was because there are so many videos and so many concepts, right? He doesn't teach a strategy, he teaches various types of concepts. I dedicated like 2 years of my life of watching at the bare minimum 2 hours a day of his videos. And then when I actually put together my first PDF and first course, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to brain dump everything I know into this, you know, because I had a lot of people asking me at that time because ICT wasn't mainstream when I started. So I was just giving my knowledge for free at that point. I was just like, you guys want what I know? Here it is, right? And then I came to refine and realize that even though I knew so much, I didn't need all of it. And it was causing more confusion than not. So I really sat down and was like, what are the things that I actually look for every day? How can I make this a simple, like 5-step process so I don't get confused, you know? And I noticed that my main issue with trading at that time was confusion. I was like, am I going to buy or sell? So I tried to make ICT more mechanical. So you can say that most ICT traders are discretionary. I'm very mechanical, so I just react to what the market gives me. And I have certain areas that, if we take this area and I see my entry criteria, I'm buying. And if we take this area, I'm selling. So I'm not much so of a continuation trader. I'm a reversal trader. So I kind of defined that was where my edge lied. And I was like, if I tried to teach myself how to trade continuations and I just kept losing. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to stick with reversals and make it a very simple 5-step process. So when people come into ICT and they have all these different concepts and they don't know how to put it together, and they come to me and I'm like, listen, you don't need all of these. Like, you can pick one thing, and that one thing that you're like really good at, really focus on that, because it doesn't make sense for you to try to learn or have like 5 different entry models and confuse yourself. Like, rely on what actually works for you and really try to time it. Like, I personally, majority of the time, I don't trade more than 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
Most of the time I trade like for 30 minutes. And then if I want to hold the trade, I will allow the trade to run for the rest of the day, for instance, if I want to turn it into an intraday. But I'm like, guys, you don't need a daily bias to make a 1 to 2 risk reward. You know what I'm saying? I think people like, what is
scalping? You're scalping for a couple points, basically.
I'm sorry?
You're scalping for a couple points, basically. You don't need to get the day's bias correct. That's kind of like what you're saying, yeah?
For a beginner, yeah. I tell people, like, you can build up to having a high risk reward, because I do have an average of a 1 to 4 to a 1 to 10, because my stop loss is small.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. I can't hold for that long.
There's a couple things that stood out there that I want to dive into. You said you don't need a daily bias to get a 1 to 2. So are you saying you don't follow a larger time frame trend and you just kind of go with just the time frame that you're looking at? Or are you saying that, hey, your trades are so short that like the bias doesn't really matter, and I'll use smaller time frames?
So I actually have tried everything. I have a strategy for scalping, for intraday, and for swing, but they all are the same strategy, funny enough. So what happens is, if we get in on the lower time frame, and then eventually, let's just say that we get a 15-minute or 1 hour confirmation that you can hold for the day, I'll hold for longer. And then, I realize that if you get a 1 hour confirmation or higher, it can turn into a 2-day swing, and you can catch the entire reversal. So I realized that even though the entry could possibly be the same, depending on which confirmation you got in which time frame, it allows you to hold or not. So today, like, I got into a buy, for instance, on the lower time frame, and the higher time frame was actually looking pretty good. But as soon as the 10:30 hit, and you could see that the 1 hour couldn't close bullish, then I was like, I need to get out. So instead of being an intraday trade, it ended up being a scalp, right? So I took off a lot of what is the market telling me and react to all of that.
Yeah, it's nice to hear, because that's a huge way that I might take a trade too, is as things like cascade on themselves, right? So the lower time frames change first, and if they happen to change the higher time frames as well, you can just keep rolling with it. And does that mean that is how you get these 1 to 10 hour trades? Because you said 1 to 10. I have never heard of anyone ever taking a 1 to 10 hour trade like successfully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is what you do on the regular?
1 to 4 is my baseline.
Okay.
Usually.
That is, in my mind alone, that is absolutely insane. But I want to hear more about it. Is like, because to me, like 1 to 4, that's if you're randomly trading, you have a 20% chance of being right. So your win rate has to be low, first of all, right?
Probably. It's like, I don't know. So different apps count break even differently. So my break even can get hit a lot.
Oh, so you go to break even and then try and trail it to 1 to 4, basically. Yeah.
And I allow it to unfold.
Okay.
But I do trade a type of order block. It's called the breaker block. So that is pretty much my favorite entry model, because it goes with momentum. So once it breaks that level, the trade usually just goes, right? And then once you trade the New York Open, once that trade just goes, you're in the right momentum. So it allows for a small stop loss and a high risk reward that way.
And when you were trading, you mentioned that you're trading CFDs before trading futures. Were you trading indexes on CFDs or currencies? What were you doing on the CFD side of things?
Yeah, so I started with the US 30
Okay,
for 4 years. Yeah. I want to say 4 years only. So I stuck to one pair.
Okay.
I wanted to know it like in and out, right? So for the first few years of my trading, that's what I focused on. And I want to say a couple years ago, I added NASDAQ.
Sure.
And then because I realized, I was like, you know what? We are going on a bad run on US 30, and I'm over here getting wrecked for a whole month. And I was like, I think I need something else, because I was like, is it me? Is it my psychology, or is it my pair? And, and sometimes I tell my students, I was like, sometimes it's not you. Very few times it's not you. But, and when I tell them about US 30, because I don't know why everybody's trading NASDAQ nowadays, and they move to it, and they're like allowing themselves to look at two pairs. They're like, oh my God, it's so much cleaner today. I was like, yeah. It's good for you to have like the bare minimum, the option,
Yeah. How do you find the difference between trading like the indexes? Because a lot of people actually, or traders, think that trading CFDs and trading futures is different. It is in the way that you trade it, but you can still trade the NASDAQ as a CFD contract as well as the NASDAQ as a futures contract. How have you found the difference between trading the futures and the CFD indexes? The spreads must be obviously tighter, right?
There are good and bad parts to it. So the slippage that is absolutely insane on CFDs is the bad part. However, I do like to scale into my positions if I am doing, for instance, like an intraday trade, which with futures is so hard to find the medium ground. Sometimes I'm like, it works out great if we have momentum. Sometimes it doesn't. With the CFD, you're able to put two positions and break even each one individually. Yeah. It doesn't mess up your average like futures. Yeah. That is the main difference that
I agree with that. I like the CFDs that give you two entry prices, so two positions. If you take an entry, then you take another one later on, it gives you two separate entries. Whereas the futures, it gives you an average price. It's basically still one entry.
So that's interesting enough. That's completely dependent on how the broker wants to set you up.
Oh, does other futures brokers have different, like, will give you the same style as the CFDs?
So
let me know which one.
Yeah. So on the broker side, there's an option you can choose between netting or hedging. So netting is, I know this simply because I'm on the broker side, right? Sure. But generally the CFD market wants hedging, and then futures wants netting, and then the netting combines them all into one.
Yeah, the hedging is definitely the separate positions I like personally.
You like that one better? Well, funny enough is hedging ends up costing the client more in fees, because
I can imagine, because you take in two positions essentially.
But
that way you can manage it easier.
Worth it, because if you're putting two positions in, it means like you're doubling, So like I used to like a lot to scale into my positions with CFD, because my second position, it pretty much in my head didn't cost me anything, because the first one would break even, and the second one would give me the same amount that I was risking in first place. So once you're allowed to break even your first position, the second one kind of like doesn't matter that much. Yeah.
You're saying like the second one's kind of a free trade?
Yeah, because if you put your first position into profit, and then your second one, has, I don't know,
okay.
Yeah.
You're saying
the first position's in break even, and the second one's added in, basically. Yeah.
Okay. I'm so used to doing the opposite, as DCAing into a trade, so I was getting confused in how the second one's free.
So you can put your first position into profit, and then the second one at first has a stop loss. So if you're into profit $250 and your second one has a stop loss of $250, now you're break even overall, even if you don't get taken out.
So your trading style is a little bit, it's interesting because it's a few different things I've heard from different people, and you've kind of combined it all, right? The one is, you've got some ICT concepts, but you're like specializing. You're like, I'm only doing the reversals. I'm assuming that means the like the sweeps, right? Is that kind of what you've chosen?
Yeah. So like when people get a little bit confused about like when I mean continuations is like I'm like if we are buying and we are like in the morning we are already like bought up so much, unless we do a pullback into a certain area, I'm not gonna buy the top, right? Yeah. If we pull back a certain amount, which is the sweep, but it could be inside of the range, I will still get in. But that is not considered like a continuation entry. That is considered like a reversal entry because I'm going to wait for it to sell a little bit in order to buy.
Yeah. The hilarious thing is what we all learn as children, basically, is buy low, sell high, right? And it's like, it's so funny. It's like it breaks out, and then the likelihood of that being the low is still pretty low. You know what I mean? So I see what you're saying is like you have to wait for it to at least come lower. Even if it did break out, you're not going to buy the very top. You're going to wait for some sort of reversal, right?
Yeah.
And then hopefully it'll continue breaking out after that, right?
Yeah. So once the reversal happens first, then I will look for signs of a second reversal to upside if you're talking about buys.
And then from there, you're doing it must be some sort of like momentum sort of play where you're just you're trying to get these big winners and you're taking a lot of break evens, right?
I try to be very patient with my entries because I'm gonna wait for a break of structure first. So and what I tell my students too that I really pay attention to is how the candles move. So a lot of people talk about patterns, but the way that the pattern forms is actually very important. And I think that's what ICT tried to emphasize, and a lot of people don't pick up on it, is that like when we're getting a true reversal, it needs to be a rapid move down and a rapid move up on the exact same leg that happens. So if that specific leg doesn't have momentum, I don't get in. So you need a momentum down and momentum back up in order for that to be considered the true reversal. And a lot of people think that just because it broke structure, but if the candles are like, it takes, I don't know, like 10 1-minute candles to form the reversal, very slow, that is not likely to be a true reversal. So the way that the candles actually form really matters. And then I'll do with like stop orders sometimes if it like I see the momentum forming.
So not every breakout is real in your mind. It's unless it's got momentum behind it.
Yeah.
What does momentum look like?
In my case, because I'm trying to use not ICT terms a little bit, but
you can use ICT terms. It's fine because it's like the great thing about ICT is he's kind of coined a language, right? So we can communicate in ICT terms, and I think it's easiest for people to understand at home, so they know what you're talking about, what shape you're talking about.
Okay, so with a breaker specifically, because that's my specialty. I'm looking for a liquidity sweep and a changing state of delivery. And that changing state of delivery has to be very precise. It needs to be with, what is it called? Like it needs to be a very rapid move. Like if we get a liquidity sweep down, the very next leg after that needs to break structure.
Okay.
And
not like, so let's just, I'm going to draw it like a child.
It's like a V. Right? I call it like remember like the M's and W's pattern?
Yeah.
Kind of like that, but like the way that the M's and the W's form on the lower time frame with the momentum behind it.
Yeah. So not like if it goes down, it comes back up and just fizzles a bit. You're like, even if it comes back in, you're like, I'm not going to. Yeah. It's not obvious that people are panicking to buy this.
Yeah. So you need to have a very strong rejection, and that's where, the order block comes into play. Is like you get a sweep and forms a rejection block, which is just a candle with a really long wick that took liquidity. And then the next leg up needs to be very strong. So the pattern happens like almost immediately. So that's what I'm really looking for. And throughout the years, that's what I've really tried to perfect was what are the high probability setups rather than the low probability setups. And then timing also. I tell everybody, I was like, don't get in before 9:30, especially on NQ. On YM, you can get away with getting in a little bit early, but 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, NQ is going to have a second liquidity draw at 9:30, like 100%. And then when I look for the false move, up or down, that is what defines what I'm doing. So like I have to wait for that 9:30 candle with NQ is very key.
Do you prefer the Dow over the NQ?
Overall, yes, I do.
Yeah. I think I know why, but I'd like to hear your opinion on how they move differently, and why it's better in your mind.
So with NQ, you do have always a second manipulation. You think that you're done with the manipulation, and then there's another manipulation. And sometimes you have a third manipulation, and then sometimes, even though you had the manipulation, he will kind of accumulate a little bit before he decides what he wants to do. So it's a little bit slower, right? Yeah. And even though it moves very rapidly, to form the criteria is very slow compared to the Dow, right? Once the Dow does its major manipulation, it just breaks and goes, now you're catching 200, 300 points. So when you talk about like high risk reward, with a pair that moves on average 200 to 300 points, that is not that hard to happen, especially when you have momentum behind it.
The Dow actually is price weighted, whereas the Nasdaq's percentage based weighted as well. So like a stock like Goldman Sachs will move the Dow a lot more aggressively than Apple or Microsoft, and that's more percentage based than the Nasdaq. That's why they do move differently. Is that what you're going to say? Yeah,
I actually didn't even know that.
Yeah, so that is why they move differently. So like when Netflix, I don't know if they are on the Dow. I like trading the YM as well, but when the Dow, let's say Netflix is trading as $1,000 stock, then I think a couple months ago they did a stock split and did 10-1. So they involvement, how they manipulate the Dow will drop quite drastically, because now they're trading at $100 compared to $1,000. So the Dow's price weighted, whereas the Nasdaq and ES are percentage based weighted.
See, and I don't like to trade the ES. There was a point in time that I was like, you know what? I trade 2 indices. Why don't I add the third one? And I couldn't do it. I was like, it's too slow. So I realized, I'm like, yeah, I definitely need that aggressive momentum to be able to tell, with ES, it was so slow.
Yeah, ES can be quite choppy at times. I agree.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe let's get a couple questions. I'll post a couple here. From your experience, which is better, scalping, day trading, or swing trading? You use all of them, but which one would you pick if you had to choose one, I suppose?
If I had to pick, I would, and this is where I started. I think that made me profitable was just to trade the open. My philosophy was, what time do I want to trade and what makes the most sense? And I was like, well, the 9:30 open is how you can make the most amount of money in the least amount of time. We're talking about time freedom instead of staying on the computer all day. So that is the perfect time for that to happen. If you master the open, there are some days that I trade for 5 minutes. I'm like, my take profit hits from 9:30 to 9:35. I'm like, well, I'm done.
Yeah. Do you only take like maybe 1 or 2 trades?
So I will allow myself, like, let's just say if I'm trading a 50K account, I will allow myself to be negative 500 for the day because of the break evens. So sometimes like 1 to 2 trades, but they are both break even and I see another opportunity, I don't want to cap myself as long as I'm within my daily loss that I input for myself. I feel like that gives me more freedom.
Okay, cool. And I got another question here that I rather enjoy. For some reason, I always enjoy things that are non-trading related coming over to trading.
Yeah.
What's your What's your best non-trading habit that's improved your trading?
Going to the gym before trading or after trading. Sometimes I go to the gym just to like walk on the treadmill, or I'll go walk on the beach.
Yeah.
Like I wake up I start waking up early just to be able to be on the right mindset for when I come to the charts, like I'm calm, So I didn't used to do that before, and now I religiously do that.
You think that's it's more about the fitness or more about the mental release doing, because you're saying walking, and I think that's more of a mental like relaxation thing,
Yeah,
right?
it is more of a mental relaxation thing, because I will weight train after I'm done trading. So like in the morning is literally just for me to either listen to a podcast, really get on to that zone of like trying to be calm and not think about the other problems that you might be facing, right? Because I think that especially when I was coming up, right, when I very first was coming up, I was having a lot of debt and a lot of problems. And for you to be able to trade and not think about those problems, you have to be in this certain mind state that allows you to block everything out and really present, And I think when you do some self development in the morning before trading, at least taking an hour to just like, it doesn't even have to be just walking, but it can be like, cooking yourself breakfast, being very calm, listening to a podcast, taking a shower and not rushing. I think that rush, whenever I rush, it translates into my trades.
Yeah, I feel that heavily being on the West Coast. Like I so badly do I want to trade the open. I think that's like that's the trader's dream, is just being in the open 5 minutes a day sort of thing, exactly like you said. But the reality is when you're waking up that early and you're coming over to the computer and you're like just barely getting your coffee, you are in that rush mentality. And one of the best things for my trading is just not trading the open now, right? Like just because you have that panic state first thing in the morning until you do some sort of coffee on the patio or go for a walk or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the open's very early for me here, Hunter. 3:30 p.m. South African time.
Well, yeah, you're up till 4 a.m. partying with your children, your wife and kids at the club. I know it.
Yeah, exactly.
And get them partying young. Yeah.
No,
okay,
no,
cool.
Yeah.
I seen a question about drawdown. How do you manage going into draw? You say you have a daily cap of $500, but let's say like the current market conditions, right? Current market conditions have been crazy. Like I'm not sure if you're in any drawdown right now. I'm in a little bit of drawdown, myself, just because it's markets are dumping, they pump up for a day, you miss the move, and then dumps it, different things like this. How would you manage a period kind of like now where things are just kind of like so scary? You know what I mean?
I personally think that instead of trading the news, right? If what needs to change is definitely how long you stay in the market and at what time, right? So I think the open almost rarely ever changes. You can still catch that 1 to 2 and be out. That's why I rely heavily on the open, right? Any other time you're going to be waiting, you're going to be like on that wrong side of the market. But I think it's really important to just get in and get out when times are unstable that doesn't allow for an intraday pattern.
Okay.
And then if you still are in drawdown, I always go back to the basic. Okay, like so if the 1 to 2 is still not working, that a 1-to-1, literally you're gonna have an 80 to 90% win rate.
Yeah.
So go back to a 1-to-1. I started with a 1-to-1, when I was trading the open, and then I perfected that. So like I don't think there is like a right or wrong way of trading. The only thing about trading is like you got to win more than you lose. So if you're in a period of drawdown and you need to get out of it, you need a higher win rate instead of a low win rate. So you just got to adapt getting in and getting out. Like you see green, you take green, essentially. And I think it doesn't really matter. Even though I am a high risk reward trader, I think there are times that you need to understand that, the instability of the market, and especially with prop firms, consistency over everything else.
Are you only trading props, Izzy, or are you trading personal cash accounts as well?
I do have a personal cash account.
No.
And do you trade it differently?
At times, like I will. So nowadays I don't hold props longer, and I would hold my personal a little bit longer if I do want to, like intraday. I was saying, like I tend to find that like with props, it's kind of like if I don't get that push at the open that is bringing me to over the 1 to 4, and then if I don't take that money, I don't know. It kind of feels like I'm not. It's a lot easier to see the cash and take it on props for some reason. I really don't know why exactly. It's just the difference that I've noticed between my trading, because like I make a lot more money on props when I don't try to hold for the entire day.
Sure. Yeah, they also got a lot of different rules, like prop firms. You kind of have to play by the rules, and getting green and just getting out. That's also what I do on the prop firms. Works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got any other questions there, Hunter, in the chat? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through. A lot of them are. I'm trying to find things that are maybe more specific to Izzy and the conversation.
Not ChatGPT drawn up questions.
Yeah, we every time we have a female on, there's always the question of why do you have, or what disadvantages do you have, and I just don't want to answer that question again.
I mean, I don't mind answering it real quick.
I mean, so sure, yeah. If you have any insight on being a female trader and how it's different, maybe a female audience might want to tune into.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome to share. But it's a question we get every single time we have a female.
Sure.
And
I do have a different perspective because I don't.
Sure.
So I was in the military, right? I think that I've been able to tune out my emotions a lot more than most of my female students, right? So I think it's not just in this space in general, but like how you trade is different as a woman and as a man. I tend to find that women are a lot more reserved and having issues on being wrong and pressing the button. They want everything to be perfect. And the truth is that nothing is ever going to be 100% perfect or 100% of the time. So like women have to take away that perfectionism out of the window and really try to like just be okay with risking, right? With men, it's more so they need to slow down because men are just like with ego driven. They just want to press the button, over risk, oversize. So it's like you kind of got to meet in the middle of those two, and you need to understand this is a probability game, and oversizing and undersizing are not going to get you to your goal. Because like, what is the point of you trading one account for 6 months and not getting a payout? So everybody needs to meet in the middle of like use the proper risk management, but don't have that doubt of being too afraid of making money, because you're also not going to progress that way, right? But inside of the actual space, believe it or not, I don't get that much hate. I actually get a lot of people that tell me that they respect me, rather. Right. So as far as that side of the industry goes, and I think is because whenever I became more mainstream, I'm already funded. I already made, hundreds and thousands of dollars with trading. Right. So I'm not coming to this space like most, I guess, women are nowadays, that they are learning how to trade. Right. So when I talk to men and they see me talk about the market, they're like, that is actually very impressive. Like that is feedback that I get usually. So maybe it's not the same as other people. Do I get hate comments? Sure, right? Everybody does, but there's no comparison.
Yeah, I think that's no different from any person that's putting themselves out there. You're gonna get hate comments from people who want to do what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so I heard you say something. You said we have to meet in the middle, right? Men and women, right? So are you saying that as a man, I should pull out my inner feminine, and that would allow me to be a better trader, and as a woman, you should pull out your masculine side, and then find this balance in order to trade most effectively?
So I'm laughing because I actually made a reel talking about that exactly, and I use those terms. And men were asking me if putting on a panty would make them a better trader.
Yeah, I think you're getting some good engagement off of that post. For sure. Right.
They completely missed the mark. I was like, yeah, put on a thong. Let's see what happens now. But yes, and then some other people are like, you have yin and yang. You do need to find a balance on how you come to the charts within yourself. So like for women, I do believe that you need to tune into your masculine energy. And for men, I do think that you need to tune into your feminine energy, right? Feminine energy is not the same as being gay. I don't know why men like that. That's the majority of feedback that I got from men, and I'm just like that's not it. But it's being more in tune with your emotions, because men are so prideful, so ego driven, that you need to take a step back and realize that the trade does not reflect who you are. It's just a statistic. But for men, I think that is like a huge thing, that they do come in the charts trying to prove something to somebody, and usually it's themselves.
Yeah. I love this because it's one of the things that kind of accelerated my trading is removing that, at least trying to remove that ego and being more on the softer acceptance side, right? What are sort of some things? Most of our audience is male, so we are gonna kind of gear a little bit more male here, but what are some things that would pull out more of the feminine side without it being seen as, as you put it, gay?
So let's talk about consistency, right? Because I think that men, for instance, struggle a lot with consistency. They oversize and overtrade.
Yeah.
And for you to balance that, I think everything comes down to a plan, right? And I think man is a lot more about like doing it instead of planning. And then women plan too much and then they don't act on it. So like you have the opposite. So instead of acting, you need to stop and think and plan. Like, what is the best strategy, right? You don't go into a war and you're just over there fighting. You plan this specific strategy first, and then you go into attack mode, right? So using that analogy, like, okay, if my goal, and I think that's what helped me get my first payout, was like, I want to make 100,000. How many props do I need? How many trades do I take a day? What is my average win rate? Like, how many trades can I take and risk how much to make how much? And if you really break down the process and you're so focused on like embracing that those losing days are actually protecting you for a bigger red day and is within your plan, and really be the process driven and data driven rather than just trying to throw like, a dart on the wall and see if it sticks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting take because, I think it's dead on accurate, right? Like men just they don't plan for trips. You know what I mean? Like if I go traveling or something, I'll throw a couple pairs of underwear in a bag and be like, oh, that's good. Forget my toothbrush, but I'll just buy one. You know what I mean? Like, just go with the flow. Like, and that's terrible for trading, right? Like not having a plan, right? Okay, cool. I love that. That's good. Here's another question from, I don't know the name here. Do you have any silly mistakes that you catch yourself often with? That you're like, oh, you just kind of kick yourself in the butt every once in a while. You're like, that was dumb.
Yeah, I don't think that ever goes away. I think that my bounce back from it does. As like,
Yeah.
I won't wait for a candle closure and then it's a fake out. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
I catch myself doing that and I'm just like, hold on, I need to walk in, and then I'm like, okay, pay attention now. So it's just gonna happen. I don't think that ever goes away. The longer I trade, I still find myself following or whatever, but I think is the way that you act and how you bounce back from it. Like, just because I'm following doesn't mean that I'm acting on it. Maybe earlier in my days, I would still jump in just because and then get around.
Cool. Go on, James.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you a big proponent of copy trading, Izzy, or like splitting your accounts up? Like, how do you do that?
I do like copy trading, but at the same time, if I want to put more, let's just say, pressure in an account, I will separately trade that account, or maybe change it in the copier to like half size it, the other ones, or double size it.
Yeah.
So that is what I usually do, is like, if I am going for a bigger payout, and one of my accounts is already within a decent sized buffer, I'm not gonna say like as safe as like an account that doesn't have a buffer.
Sure.
Maybe I will, increase my lot size.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think that overall, I don't panic when I'm copy trading because, I understand the probabilities. I'm like,
see, Hunter, she used the word lot size. She still prefers CFDs.
Yeah. You never leave where you start from.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a little place in my brain that will never forget MetaTrader 5. I don't really use MetaTrader 5.
I also think I don't know about you, Izzy, but I still prefer the position sizing on CFDs are a lot more flexible than the futures.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is something that I miss so much. It's definitely that, because you literally custom exactly what
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
we
I was
actually
saying this, Hunter, to the guys, like if you want to have like a 200-point stop on the NASDAQ or a 50-point stop on the NASDAQ, you can risk $1,000 no matter what because of the lot size, where you can't really do that on futures.
Yeah. That was my challenge to overcome, honestly.
On Maven, we actually introduced with Gold Eternals like nano lots, right? Where it's like instead of like 0.1 or 0.01, it's like 0.0001. So we can do all the way down to like you can absolutely make it a $0 bet at this point. just for the sake of more freedom, right? Because people like their specific order sizes, right? So
listen, I'm over here like I'm listening. I'm like, maybe I have to come back to CFDs.
We will.
I wanted to leave CFDs. It was like the whole, MetaTrader 5 thing that happened, and every other props are kicking people out. And
yeah.
That
was a day that we actually predicted long ago, and we kind of started making preparations before that. And I remember the day that things shut down. All we did on Maven was we just flipped a switch and we just went to a different trading terminal. We went to Match. We had already set up Match. We had already set up everything else. And it was a funny thing, is like everyone else is panicking and we literally just pushed a button to switch over to the other one.
Right. And some firms did that, but back then I also used to copy trade different firms.
Yeah.
So I've been copy trading for a long time. So it ruined my entire system, because now you have Trade Locker, you have Match Trader, you have MT5, you have God knows another specific one. And back then, a lot of things were like the what is it called? Trade Locker was beta tested. So every day at 9:30 would shut down. I'm like, God.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because you would only be able to copy trade on MetaTrader back then, right?
Yeah. Okay. It was great. I had my risk settings. I was really big into like having, EAs, and having the copy trading and the risk settings. So, and to see just now futures catching up to it is unbelievable. I'm like, God, I used to be able to set a max risk on my EAs, back when I very first started trading. And then just now the futures is having this new feature. And I'm like, this been a thing.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to see technology just now catch up.
Okay. So this is a good, decent question. As a new trader that doesn't know anything, right? What would you look for in order to find a mentor?
As somebody who went through a bunch of mentorships, and I actually will say I've had plenty of mentors. I never had a true mentor. I think that is one of the hardest things to find, because nowadays people just like buy my course and you get thrown in a Discord and then you don't actually ever talk to that person. And to me, that is not a mentor. So I'm very careful when I say my students rather than I'm mentoring them. There are some people that I feel like I'm closer that I do truly mentor them, because I speak to them every day and I am a lot more involved on like how I guide them, right? I'm of course I'm open to have conversations with everybody that like are in my section of the Discord, but I think the true mentorship comes from spending one-on-one time with that person, right? Which nowadays is very rare. I think the biggest thing is to know if that person truly would, if you need to talk to that person, if that person would be readily available, to actually talk to you, and that you wouldn't be another number. Because what is a mentor if whenever you're tilting, because I do tell all my students, like, you can call me if you're going through something like that, right? Because I genuinely care. I don't like you when you're in that state of mind. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do if you don't actually talk to somebody and process those emotions, right? One thing that I actually did think it was great that I did on the last bootcamp that I released was that I assigned them accountability buddies. I was like, I know I can't fulfill everybody's need here because of like it's a bigger community, but pick one person to hold you accountable, and that if you need to talk to that person, you can, So trying to find somebody that I guess truly cares, because I'm trying to make the difference in this space from things that I didn't have when I first started, from other mentorships that I've taken that I was just like, this is complete trash.
Yeah. So somebody's going to be more involved with your life. Somebody's going to treat you like a friend, maybe a little bit like therapy session, than just like, here's the knowledge, go,
here's my course, go read the course, But that to me is not a mentor. So that's why I don't use that term very loosely.
Yeah. Do you think these larger educators, the ones, that millions of followers or whatever, it would be impossible for them to be good mentors by that logic?
I started running into that issue. And that's what I was referencing, because I was like, okay, I used to give homework. So I actually graded homework for one thing that people don't do. And at first it was very manageable because only a few people were doing and submitting the homework. And then I'm facing that right now. I'm like, how do I allow more people to join, but they still can have the same benefit of like me actually looking at your chart and telling you where you're going wrong? Because I think that is the biggest thing when you're trying to learn. And if I had somebody that would actually look at my trade, like my actual chart, and tell me like, hey, this is not a true break of structure, this is how we improve it, I would have been there much faster, right? Instead of like comparing my charts like videos on the internet. So I think that whenever you're growing, you need to train people. So I actually trained 3 girls that are helping me correct the homework.
Wow. Okay.
As
Yeah.
you grow, you have to have people under you, just like a company does. So you can still have the same level of like human contact. Because certain things you just can't automate, but you can replicate.
Yeah, I was just going to actually ask that is why not get like the students of the previous year
Yeah.
to grade the tests of the new year students, right? And then, you know, give them a little kickback or something just for their time. But
so that is kind of what I'm working with right now. I was like, you know, and that's when I came up with the body system. I was like, you know, you guys can talk to each other and look at each other's charts. That way it's a lot more manageable. And then I have my assistants that do know how I trade, and you know, and then they can also help if they're still needing help. And then if they can't answer anything, then I can come into play, you know. And then on our weekly calls, I can go over things. So it's kind of creating like this tier of like, you know, first you start here. If you can't fix that problem, then you come here. Because I think that is the only true way of still truly having a community, rather than like, you know, just having one person running everything and not being able to like reproduce like their knowledge and pass it forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. With that, I think we might wrap up. James, do you have any final questions that you're pitching?
All good, my side. I think it's been a good stream.
Awesome. Izzy, what we're going to do is I've just posted the winner of the 50K account. It's the guy who asked about the mentorship there. Do you have anything that you want to plug just so people can find you on Instagram or socials or anything?
Yeah, I actually only am using Instagram at the moment because I have a blue check mark. You know how it is with scammers and everything.
Yeah,
I will plug that. But
I'm posting in the Discord, discord.gg/Maven, Izzy's page, so you can go follow her and learn from her and see all the things that she's up to.
No, it was nice coming here. Thank you guys. It's been a great time. It's really nice to be able to talk to other people in the industry that, you know, been in the industry and know how things are, you know, have been changing.
Yeah. You think a little bit easier than expect? You thought I was just going to grill you with ICT or what?
Listen, I never know what to expect, you know, but I am trading, and like I get grilled every day by the people in the Discord anyway, because you know we have this little war between like ICT traders and orb traders going on.
Yeah. You know what though? You said exactly what I would have wanted to hear from an ICT trader is parts of it work, right? You have to make it less complicated. And that's the biggest stipulation I have with that sort of trading is there's so many moving parts that you got to just do one, you know what I mean? And then you can make that one thing work. And I'm really happy to hear that that's what you do.
And maybe you're never going to hear this from another ICT trader, but one thing that I say is that everything works, you know, ICT himself, and maybe that is one thing that I disagree with him, that he says, you know, retail doesn't work, nothing else works but what I do. And the truth is everything works. It depends on how you apply it. Like I can't tell somebody that is making money that their strategy doesn't work, you know? So like if support and resistance works for you, who am I to tell you that it doesn't if you are pulling money out of the market?
I think if you're arguing about whose strategy is better and everything like that, you got a lot bigger issues than that. You're definitely not making bucks trading then.
Because
James, I'm certain my strategy is better than yours.
Well, you may have more drawdown, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't work, you know, and that is one of the things that I personally
we'll tackle each other. We'll tackle each other on the yacht, Hunter, and see who's
In a couple of weeks, we'll meet up and duel it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Izzy. We do this every single Tuesday, guys. The winner of the 50K account is posted in the Discord. Thanks so much, Izzy. We'll see you next time.
See you. Bye.
Ciao.